What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is, because people get to know you, they get to see you.
But, you know, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development programme I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated. Yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews, and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so, into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer, or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. This is quite a different discussion from the usual ones that we have on ScaleUp Radio. So this is an interview with Dawn Dines, who is the CEO and founder of Stamp Out Spiking. And as you'll listen, you only got to get just into the first few seconds of it, and you'll hear how passionate Dawn is about the issue of drinks spiking. This is a discussion with Dawn all around champion a cause. So it's a great example of building an organization around a mission that you really want to achieve. It's less about the monetary side of things than most of the interviews that we've had in the past. But Dawn has been doing this for about 20 years and is really getting traction now, and is trying to really change mindsets and to be able to build a business off the back of it that will be able to fund the awareness training that she wants to be able to do. So it is a really interesting discussion. It's very different. We go through all sorts of different aspects, including a visit to Dragon's Den. I think Dawn would admit perhaps before she was really ready to think about it from a business perspective, but all sorts of interesting things, particularly if you're building a mission-led business that you're trying to champion a cause, and how do you go about really raising awareness and education around that cause. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm here with Dawn Dines, the CEO and founder of Stamp Out Spiking. Dawn, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, Kevin.
No, it's brilliant. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about Stamp Out Spiking. So there's clearly a clue in the name, but tell us about what it's all about.
Well, as you say, it says what it does on the tin, but I actually have been campaigning against this disgusting, cowardly crime for the last 2 decades. And it happened to me years ago. Somebody tried to spike my drink back in 1989 when I was traveling around the world. And luckily, I caught the guy in action trying to put something into my drink. All the hairs went up on the back of my neck, and I thought, oh my God, he's done something to my drink. And do you know what? I grabbed my bag and I went to the toilet, and I thought, I'm going to go back and do something James Bond style. I'm going to swap the drinks. But I didn't. I climbed through this tiny window and ran for my life. And do you know what? That guy had been trying to get me out on a date for months and months. And he used to come and see me all the time at work, and just say hello and
so somebody you knew. I kind of thought most of this would be people that people you didn't.
Yeah, somebody I knew, and whether it had annoyed him because I'd taken months to go out for a drink with him, or to go out on a date with him, and I never saw him again. So I knew by those hairs going up on the back of my neck, when you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, you have to act upon it. So luckily I did, because I might not be here today to tell the tale. And since that day back in Australia, like traveling around the world, I've realized that as a traveler that I needed to warn my fellow traveling people that were going off doing this round the world trip. And I was like, look, I could have warned some of these people. So I have not stopped banging the drum against this vile crime ever since. And since I got back to the UK and I realised it was happening to friends of mine, now it's happening to my friends' children. It's just never ending. And I've been banging on the doors of the authorities saying, look, this is a major issue. This is a problem. I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of victims over the years. I've had men and women breaking their hearts in my arms, telling me what happened to them. And I just thought, something needs to be done about this. So I've taken this personal crusade to as far as I can take it, which is Westminster, and becoming an expert witness at the Home Affairs Committee. And now we've, like last year, we had over 1 million hits across our websites warning of this terrible crime. So, which has been amazing.
So 1 million hits, you're, as you say, you're getting yourself in front of all of the right people. So, tell us a bit about, that journey. So you started 20 years ago or so. So, what does the organization look like now? You said you got 1 million hits, so some scale going on here. Okay,
so what the organization looks like now. Through many tears in my cornflakes, I've got to say, if I wasn't persistent and I didn't have the resilience of a rhinoceros, then I don't think I'd be here right now. So, I've had many doors slammed in my face. I've had emails not answered. I've requested meetings and I've just carried on. And I've just, do you know what? I think personally for me that if I hadn't spoke to all of those victims of this horrid crime for all of these years, I think I would have probably given up. I really would have. But because I remember the stories, what happened, some horrific stories and accounts of what's happened to people over the years, I think that gives me the strength to go, I can't give this up. I have to do it just for them, not just to change the law or to change people's perception. I think it was that I had to do it for the disclosures that I've had over all of this time. And now it looks like we've got, a couple of key members of staff. I've got some ambassadors around the country. Now I'm starting to get ambassadors around the world.
Yeah, right.
Which is brilliant, because this is not just an issue that's here in the UK. It's a global problem and it really needs to be highlighted. And if we get the law changed, then that means everybody has to up their game, and about bloody time is all I've got to say on that matter.
Yeah. So when will you be done? I think I know the answer to this question, but what would you consider as a job done?
Job done. Right. Let's have a look at those tick boxes, shall I? That would be that spiking is recognised as a crime in its own right. That is my number one. That we have protective covers in bars and festivals, so that when people are out in a busy nightclub or in a festival situation and they're dancing and they're not looking at their drink, that they're being looked after properly. That bars, nightclubs, any venue that puts on an event where there's going to be people having fun, drinking, not even alcohol, because non-alcoholic drinks can get spiked just as easily, but any sort of big event that people recognise that this is a crime that's taken place, so that we can make sure that we've got the correct procedures in place. We've got an immediate call to action, that it's included in everybody's risk assessment. At the end of the day, this crime is happening. It has been happening forever. And it's about time in the 20th century that we all adhered to what's happening on the streets and we acted accordingly.
And are there any countries that are further ahead than the UK than others?
Not that I've seen, no. Which is a shame, because we know it's happening in Germany. We know it's been happening in France. We know it's going on in Australia. It's been rife over there. I've been banging on the doors of those authorities as well. I had a meeting, and the Sydney Morning Herald said, I don't know, they put some quote saying, "Smarty Pants comes ready to party," or something, because I made some quip saying that, that these top protective covers are not just there to stop opportunist spikers. It also stops creepy crawlies getting in your beer. And I think they thought that was quite funny. So they give me a good headline in the Sydney Morning Herald back 20 years ago, maybe, I think that was.
All right.
So, yes, I've been forever banging this drum, and that's why I really am elated that how far we've got now with showing that, we've got ministers that are now backing our campaign. So I couldn't have wished for anything better, to be honest.
So yeah, I mean, clearly, you're incredibly passionate about it. How have you managed to fund the journey? It sounds like, there's it must be quite expensive. Some parts. So how does the money work? Have you managed to fund it?
With begging, borrowing, and stealing, I think, would be the first way of explaining that. For all of this time, I self-funded all of the work that I've done. Now, luckily, we've had some sales in Stop Tops, which we give a donation back for every time a Stop Top is used. A donation goes into our charitable organisation, Stamp Out Spiking. So that now is running to run national campaigns. We actually got some funding from the lottery recently, which was amazing. And we're looking at different funding providers now to sort of look at helping us. We also had very kindly Devon County Council have put some funding in to help us from their locality budgets from the local councillors. We've also had some funding from our Exeter City councillors. And so now I think that every time I applied for funding in the past, people were like, spiking? What's spiking? And, now because of what's been happening, the girls' night in, I have to mention that. When all the girls across the UK last year went, enough is enough.
I saw that on going out. I saw that on the website, on the timeline. So tell me about it. I wasn't aware of it until I saw it on your website. So tell me about that.
So last year, girls were going out, getting their drinks spiked, getting sexually assaulted, raped, done as a prank. Boys and men were getting robbed, getting raped. And it started off as a girls' night in, but it quickly sort of went to like a night in, because it was like, this shouldn't be just about women and girls. This crime can happen to anybody. It has no prejudice. It can happen at any time to anybody in any place. But the girls decided, right, we've had enough of going out. We've had enough of getting our drinks spiked. And they said, we're going to arrange a night in. And it just went viral. And it just, like every city, major city, saw people saying, enough is enough. So they decided that they were going to campaign, that they were going to have a girls' night in. And of course, then the nighttime economy went, oh my God, because suddenly they were losing all this revenue. And so then, because all this revenue was getting lost, suddenly the authorities started going, what? And everyone started listening. So I tipped my hat to all of those girls and said, enough is enough. And then I've been campaigning, as you know, for nearly 2 decades, quite vocally.
Yes.
And so then I contacted all of the girls' night in and said, look, how many? So loads of these women then came back to me and told me how they've been spiked, where they've been spiked, what happened to them. And then we've also done our own surveys in the past, and we found out that over 97% of victims didn't report this crime to the police. And we were like, why? And now I know why, because there was no specific offence. People didn't even realise that drink spiking with extra alcohol is a form of spiking, but only if it's done with malicious intent. So that means there is a gap in the law. The reason why we need spiking to have its own specific offence code, because when you go to I've gone to every police force across the United Kingdom, I've asked for their freedom of information data, and it was impossible to get. So that made me realise about 3 years ago, I was like, if this is impossible to get this data, why? Because there was no specific offence code. So people were getting prosecuted under the, offence against the Parsons Act, or poison with obnoxious substance, or rape or sexual assault. So there was no clear way that we could obtain that all important needed data to prove that this crime is rife. So now, hopefully, fingers crossed, with 5 cross parties, I must add, and the former Home Secretary, the former Safeguarding Minister, all saying this needs to be done. I'm like, right. So now it feels like we're on a level playing field.
Okay.
I seem to have skipped off of how have I funded this.
No, that's fine. It's all great stuff, and hearing your passion and the backstory to it. So the funding by various funding means, lottery funding, and you've got a little bit of income coming in from, you mentioned the stop tops, and those are the tops that you were mentioning to go on the top of the drinks, I'm guessing.
These are sticky bits of foil, basically, with a specialised glue, and which will stick to wet or frozen material. So you just take off a stop top, you put it on top of your glass, or could be on top of a bottle or a can. And it's just going to stop an opportunist from being able to slip something into your drink. But the most important bit is we have a QR code on each one, which takes people to that all important safety information. So if they got spiked or a friend of theirs got spiked, then they'd know exactly what to do. They'd have a step-by-step guide, how to secure the evidence, so it's all helping for people to gain a conviction, and hopefully helping the police at the same time, because they'll know to keep that evidence. They'll know to go and get tested. They'll know a step-by-step guide of what to do from us.
And could you take us through, so for people maybe thinking of setting up a business with a cause like you've done, you're thinking behind making it a not-for-profit, because I think you think both the stamp out spiking and the stop tops are separate businesses as separate not-for-profits. Is that right?
No, Stamp Out Spiking is a charitable organisation. Okay. So that's a not-for-profit, which we're looking to get charitable status. Stop Tops is a company in its own right, which is set up to supply Stamp Out Spiking and to always give donations for every Stop Top that's ever sold, so that the campaigning can go ahead, the training can go ahead. So all of those key elements of what I need to do in the future will always be looked after. And that is really important to me, because it's not, we see commercial organizations coming in now going, oh, we've got a testing kit, and they're forever saying to me, can we sell this on your website and stuff? And I'm like, no. Number one, those testing kits are not fit for purpose. They only test for 2 drugs on the market. So we don't want to be giving potential victims of this crime a false sense of security. We don't want them going, oh, we've tested my drink. Oh, it hasn't got Rohypnol in it, or it hasn't got ketamine in it, and then thinking they're safe when there's a multitude of other drugs that could have possibly been used. So we are working with different organizations to look at getting a testing kit which is fit for purpose, which will test for every drug on the market.
And you were going there anyway, even just spiking with alcohol is a form of spiking. So
of course.
Yeah. So that's not going to be picked up by any test, is it?
No, well, it can actually. If people, you can actually. That the companies we're working with, it will be able to test for showing if the person knows they've only had 2 Jack Daniels and Cokes, for example, and they give a sample and there's 8 units in that sample, then you would be able to tell for extra alcohol as well. But I think that's something a little bit further down the line, that the education that is urgently needed on even, you know, when I gave my evidence in Westminster, I remember one of the MPs saying, oh, so yeah, I didn't even think that putting extra alcohol into someone's drink was a form of spiking. So with our campaigns that we got going on across Plymouth at the moment on the buses, which is, well, it's now in Plymouth, in Exeter. So we're looking at most of Devon, and also it's gone to Cornwall as well. So we've got posters saying, well, first of all, Kevin, let me ask you a question. Have you ever played a game called Never Have I Ever?
Never have I ever. I think I may have done.
Right, okay. So you'll know, like I know, that if you ever play that bloody game, that your partner will never forget the answers that you gave.
Well, yes, that's why I was kind of being very hesitant. You've got to be very careful playing that game.
You do have to be very careful playing that game. So we've done our whole campaign on, instead of saying, don't do this, don't do that, we thought, let's cleverly try and put it, never have I ever stuck a double in my mate's drink and not told them, don't be a spiker. Never have I ever given someone a chocolate brownie and not told them there's cannabis in it. So it's trying to be a bit thought-provoking and trying to incite those key conversations that we need. And do you know what? The feedback has been amazing. I've had friends of mine who've got off a bus and they've heard a parent speaking to the teenage son. We've had a dad speaking to his teenage daughter, and they've started to have these conversations. Oh, do you realise? I didn't realise sticking a double in someone's drink's a form of spiking. That's the oldest trick in the book, isn't it? You know, go out, try and get her smashed, you know, to try and have your wicked way with her. We all know that's been going on forever. So it's about time those conversations were being had and being had by the right people. So having these, you know, we got, if you're asking me who's helped me along the way, Richard Stevens, who runs City Bus in Plymouth, helped me with some crowdfunding and put a substantial amount of money in to helping us out. And then he didn't just stop there. He put my posters on all the buses. He spoke to other bus companies in my area. They done the same. And it's been amazing just having that small bit of help, how that has just made me progress so much. And, you know, and now those conversations are being had, you know, across the Southwest. Now I want to see about those conversations going us across on a national basis because it's working.
Yeah, excellent. So take us back then when you started your campaign, started the business, and maybe some of the key points in your journey from then to now, some of the things you got right maybe, and some of the things that maybe you didn't
wrong. Right, okay. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Well, do you know what? Obviously, you can probably tell I'm a bit excitable and like, you know, I'm full of life and I've got quite a good fighting spirit. And sometimes that's been brilliant because it's got me in the door. And sometimes that's really worked against me because the sort of people that I've been talking to or dealing with, I think maybe I should have been a bit more respectful of their positions, maybe at times. Right. And I just went in like, you know, I'm a typical Taurian, like a bull in a china shop. So I'm in the door and I'm like, right. And I don't realize that slowly catch your monkey approach. It's just never sort of worked with me. And slowly over the years, you know, now I'm getting on a bit. Maybe I'm realizing sometimes, Dawn, just keep that zipped and try and work with the right people in the right way. So I had lots of doors closed in my face, like a really early stage in my career. And it's only probably now that those people are retiring that I might now have got a look in the door because they're probably thinking, oh, God. So I think, learning to keep my mouth shut at certain times. And, when people say, oh, this isn't a problem, I'll give you an example of, I won't use any names, but I went to a local brewery who owns a few bars, and I went in and I was presenting about spiking like 20 years ago. And we had a lady who was in there, and straight away I just knew that she didn't agree with what I was saying. She didn't think that spiking was an issue. She just wasn't informed, and like a lot of people are not ill-informed of this crime.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started the meeting, and she mentioned this pub that she was running, and she said to me, well, nobody who comes into my pub would ever be spiking a drink.
All right, that
and
sounds
so
like a challenge for you.
So I sort of said, well, that's a little bit of a ridiculous statement, because you don't know who is coming into your bar at any given time. And so she said, well, I can assure you, anyone who ever comes into my pub would not be, looking or capable of spiking a drink. And I said, if you're not going to add anything sensible to this conversation, then I suggest you don't bother adding anything at all. Or I said something along those lines. In other words, if you've got nothing good to say, then you might as well not say anything at all. So obviously that blew the whole reason why I was there. And then later that lady became an area manager for this particular chain. And then I was like, oh. So I really burned some bridges there, which was silly of me, because I should have sat there and said, oh, please let me send over the recent, well, I say the recent stats. We didn't have any stats because it's never been recorded as a crime in its own right. So it was maybe anecdotes from people. But now that the things have changed and people are realizing this is a hugely underreported crime. And when I say 97% of victims didn't report it to the police, the stats that we got last year were 5,000 people had reported being spiked. So if we work on my stats, look at the number of people this could be happening to.
Yeah.
It's frightening. Yeah. Absolutely frightening.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you go about raising awareness then? I mean, you've obviously over the years you've managed to get yourself in front of some key people. As you said, you've been you've had things talked about in Parliament, you've been on Crime Watch, and I think you've been on Dragon's Den as well, haven't you? And all sorts of places. How do you go about raising awareness for something when it's just you? You've got this fire in your belly and your passion, but how do you go about actually getting some traction?
Well, I went around the country. I sponsored, first of all, I found out that Rohypnol, like back 20 years ago, Rohypnol was being used quite a lot in the gay community. So I found out from quite a few different men and boys, really, that had been raped, anally raped. And a few straight men who made me promise and swear that I'd never tell their wife, their children, never tell anybody, and I never have, of course. Yeah. So I found out that this was happening through the gay community. So back all those years ago, I contacted, I'm not sure if he's called Terry George or George Terry, I can't remember, but he was part of Mr. Gay UK. So I went around the country sponsoring all of this competition and was giving out stop tops at the time and warning people it was happening. And I'll never forget being up in a club or a pub up in Leeds. I think it was called The Mission. I don't think it's around anymore, but it was a fantastic club. It was great fun. And we went to Nightingale's in Birmingham. We went to all the big pubs and clubs and venues. And I remember speaking to this guy. He was like a millionaire or multi-millionaire. And he said to me, if people start using them, I will invest and I'll pay you for what you're doing. And I was like, brilliant, that's great. So we went, I met him at the bar and he's gone up. And at the time, my stop tops were like a plastic lid. Yeah. Because we only had pint glasses and half pint glasses. It was before the days of Foster's and Carling and Guinness, everyone designing their own glass. So
Yes.
I took the glasses over to China, and I had some molds made, and I had these lids made for pint glasses and half pint glasses. And I came back and I was giving them out at this Mr. Gay UK like sponsorship. And this George Terry came over, and he said to a few of the guys that were there, and including his PA, and he said, "What do you think of these?" And these guys were like, "This is amazing. You know, it's gonna stop people from ever putting anything in your drink." And you know, it's such an innovative way of entrepreneurial way of protecting us. And then he looked at his PA and he said, "What do you think?" And he said, "I think they're amazing." And he said, especially that you can put your own logo or safety message on so people can personalize them. This has really got to be the way forward. And I'll never forget, he went like that and he threw one of my stop tops across the bar. Right. And then I'm guessing he was expecting people to go, "Oh, I wouldn't use that," or, you know, and all the guys were like, no, they thought it was great. And do you know what? He never sponsored me. He never gave me a penny for all that work I'd done going around the country doing that. So
yeah,
I know, never mind. So it was one of those. And that's probably why he was a multi-millionaire, I suppose.
So I mean, how big is the Stop Tops side of the business? And how many tops do you get out? And because I imagine challenges there are getting the bars and the clubs and things to buy into it, to understand the whole message and the problem, and then actually purchase them. So how do you go about doing that? How successful have you been that way?
Well, I contacted, obviously, all those years ago, I contacted all the major players in the field, Diageo and, you know, all the massive corporations. And their first sort of feeling back to me was, we don't want our drinks to be associated with spiking. Yeah, right. But actually, there was a lady from, I think she was from Craft Union, and she actually got Heineken to sponsor all those years ago. And so this is 20 odd years ago, and Heineken sponsored them and they put their name on them, which I was so pleased about, because they were, you know, being in the forefront and going, no, there is a problem doing this. And they sponsored, putting, you know, Stop Tops on, and we gave out thousands of them. So people were, even back then, were looking at sponsorship deals with us. But this is something that really the drinks industry, we really need to be talking to people, looking at that. I know that Jägermeister were looking at us a little while ago, so hopefully they'll come back. And it's a question that I have to go back to. I think because my mission has been so focused on changing the law, and first of all, it was protecting people. So we got the Stop Tops out last year, like a couple of million, I think, were distributed around the country. Okay. So that was great. So we got the Stop Tops out. Some police and crime commissioners actually sponsored some of that work through the Safer Streets 4 funding. Okay. So that was great. So the protection is there. Now we feel that a public awareness video that we've just made needs to be shared on a national and international basis, to warn people about the feelings, what you're going to feel like, what you can do, what you should do. Then it's about training, getting we've got an accredited training course, which we want to go out, and that's in a not-for-profit organisation, so that we can get this training, you know, cascaded through all the key players that we need to be trained up. Anyone who works behind a bar, street pastors. You know, we in our area, we've got all our local street pastors are now trained, which is great. So they know the signs, the symptoms, and that organisation are fabulous.
So how would you deliver that training then? Is that online? Is that how do you deliver that training?
I prefer to do it face to face always. So we actually Wales is, you know, they were the Pontypridd bid. We went to Pontypridd, and it was amazing. They got everyone who was anyone in the room. We had the local Bobby in there. We had the licensing officer. We had a nightclub venue. We had a taxi driver. We had the people from the council. Basically, so that learning that was held when we said, so what do you do in a situation? You've got a young girl who you believe has been spiked. She's going in and out of consciousness. You can't get an ambulance. You've rung the police. They're under-resourced. The police can't come for 4 hours. What are we going to do? And the learning that happens when you get all of that mixed group in a room is fantastic, because you've got the key members there that say, well, you should have rung the police, but the police can't come for 4 hours. What do we do? Taxi driver says, I'm not having someone unconscious in my taxi. Then that puts him into an awkward position. So, and the learning that came out, I've got to say, from Pontypridd was absolutely amazing.
I can imagine it'd be hugely powerful. Would you scale that up if you suddenly had lots of clubs around the country wanting that training? How would you be able to deliver that?
We can train trainers. We can get people out there. We can license our materials. We can, put it like this: if this becomes law, and everyone will have to hopefully adhere to what's going on, we are ready to go out and train the whole of the United Kingdom. We can have people from my team can go to different places. We can train the trainers. We can license out our materials. We can show how people are doing it, how they're using distraction. So we're ready. Yeah.
Very good. So tell me about the rationale behind going onto Dragon's Den. Then that must have been a bit of a fun experience for you. Do you know
what? I never watched the bloody show. A friend of mine put me forward, and I'd never actually watched it. I'd heard about it, and then one of my friends said to me, "Oh God, be careful on there. They don't take any prisoners."
No.
So I was like, well, what is it? And, I realized that they could, potentially put in some funding for businesses. That's as much as I sort of knew. And then when I went there and got there, I was like, I think I had a bottle with me, and you weren't allowed to take on anything, obviously, that's got any advertising on it for any company or anything. So we took on the product, and one of them said, "Oh, you're just putting a straw into an empty bottle, and I'm out." And I was like, "What?" It was like they didn't even listen to what was being said, or knowing that the extent of this crime and what was needed to secure on it. But to be totally honest with you, I think I was too ahead of my time.
Right.
So I was trying to stop a crime that only victims knew about. Nobody else really knew about it. And I knew that somebody tried to do it to me. I've had friends, and, when I was going around the country sponsoring like this Mr. Gay UK that I told you about all those years ago, I had men and women breaking down in toilet cubicle, in toilets, going to me, "Oh my God, you believe me? What, you believe me?" And, and they broke their little hearts. And I was like, oh my God. So I didn't realize then that I should have been capturing all of this data for evidence, really, to show the authorities. So I was, I was young, and I was trying to try and break through this, but I didn't realize I should be collecting data. I didn't realize that I should be contacting MPs. I didn't realize the whole process that I needed to be going through, to be honest with you. So I think I was just ahead of my time with the Dragons, and I think that probably they didn't realize the extent of this crime and how much it's happening. And to be honest with you, I did realize the extent of it, but I didn't realize it was happening so often.
Right.
So and in so many different places.
And of course, the Dragons will be very much coming from the business opportunity itself and what opportunity there is for them to get a return on their investment. Not so much just being passionate about a cause.
Of course,
that, of course, can be part of it, a big part potentially. But they need to see the money side of it as well, don't they?
They did. And so actually it was the handsome one on the right hand side.
That'd be Peter.
Peter, that's it. Peter Jones. I always forget his name. So whenever I say the handsome one, everyone knows who I mean.
Yeah, the tall one. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's 6'9", I think he is. Yeah.
Is he? Right. So yeah, Peter Jones. I mean, you know, when they put it on the telly, they just show you them being rude to you. When actually they weren't really, to be honest with you. Yeah. And Peter Jones spent a lot of time saying to me, Dawn, what you're doing has social aims and values. I understand totally where you're coming from, but you should set this up as a social enterprise. Right. And he gave me all of the ideas what I needed to do, because I needed the whole package, not just a stock top. Yeah. I needed the campaigning. I needed the reasons why, how it was being done, and the training, which obviously has taken me. I remember someone saying to me a while ago, oh, I've been working on this training for 7 months. I've been working on this for 17 years. So it's like, you know, we know there are going to be lots of people out there that are going, but what I've done with my training, which I think makes us totally different and unique from anybody else, is I've used all of those terrible experiences that I've been told over the years, and I've tried to weave that into all of our training course, so that nearly every victim that I've tried to look after and signpost and help, and, you know, that I'm using all of their it's so important, all of their data that they've shared with me, how it was done to them, what happened to them, so that we're not making those mistakes anymore. And that is really key to our whole business plan now.
So it's focus on that data, establishing the real need, the extent of the problem, if you like, that you're out there to solve. Very, very good. Just going back to the Dragon's Den, you know, what advice would you give to somebody thinking about going on Dragon's Den?
Right. Well, personally, for me, it was an experience, and I think that's how I live my life. Yeah. It's just experience for me. I'm not a material person. I don't all I spend my money on is traveling around the world looking at animals, to be honest with you. Right. So that's my, you know, like this year I went to Alaska and saw grizzly bears catching salmon out the river.
Fantastic.
Oh my God, I cried. So so for me, experience of life, I'd say go for it. You know, make sure you're prepared. You've got your financials ready, so that when they question you, you're ready for that. But I would say give it a go. I think life is here. We're all going to face challenges. We're all going to face, you know, and what I was trying to do, I think, with the Dragon's Den, to be completely honest with you, is I was trying to skip those 5 years, hard bloody slog to try and get to where I am now. But I didn't give up. I didn't let it define me. Yeah. And I'm sure that there was people in my home city. Well, you know, my local newspaper at the time was the Express and Echo. And it was people were always taking the mick, saying that they never quoted you correctly. But actually, they quoted me word for word. It said, oh, I'm sure this morning that half of Exeter will be pleased that I didn't get any funding, and half of them will be, you know, absolutely gutted for me, because I'm a bit of a Marmite girl, and they love me or hate me. And they quoted it word for word, and I was like, but no, I think looking back on those odds, I don't think it was quite like that, because a lot of people were really devastated for me, because they knew how much time, effort, energy, money, ploughing my, you know, a massive chunk of my life into trying to make this happen. Yeah. I think a lot of people realized, and now it's really funny. I've got people coming back to me going, wow, they'll be inviting you back on the Dragon's Den. So, which is a nice feeling after all those years.
Yeah. And it sounds like you got some good advice and maybe a bit of publicity out of going on as well.
Yeah.
So what would you do differently if we're going back now to your younger self, maybe when you started this just under 20 years ago, what advice would you give yourself, and what would you do differently perhaps?
Do you know what? I wouldn't do anything differently.
Right.
Not whatsoever, apart from not be so forthcoming in my replies to certain people. Should I say that? I think that would sum it up quite nicely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And you kind of answered this, I think, a little bit earlier on. But if we're having this discussion in a few years' time, maybe in 5 years' time, what would count as success for you? Then it sounds like passing it as a recognised crime, a law as a crime would be one of those. Yeah,
definitely. Making sure that if any protective covers, there's not just stop tops, by the way. They've got spikies, which is a little plastic little sort of chip that you put in top of a bottle, which will stop anyone spiking your drink. If you've got a bottle of beer or they're brilliant, but lots of pubs and clubs don't let you keep hold of a bottle because of fighting. Right. So that's why I actually designed the stop tops, funny enough, because spikies couldn't do that. And there's also something called a nightcap now, which we've joined forces with in America, which is Michael. He's designed a nightcap, and it's like a scrunchie that girls can, put around their wrist or in their hair. And this comes out and it's got like a little thing that goes around your glass and stops, again, an opportunist from easily being able to spike you. So any of those that are on the market at the moment, I would recommend for people to take in their bag, or pubs or clubs to be able to offer them to different youngsters or any age group. This doesn't just happen to young people. And of course, our accredited training. We would like to see that any licensed premises that was serving alcohol or even non-alcoholic drinks, as I said, any drinks can be spiked, that they have this spike aware accreditation, so that bar staff know what's happening. These young people that are going in, like, I work behind a bar, I got my publican's license, and I know for a fact that there's not one question when I took my exam that talks about spiking. And for somebody who can now go in and run a pub, run a bar, put on an event, run a festival, because I can now with my publican's license, if I want to sell alcohol, then surely this should be something in law that says that you must have a certain understanding.
You could almost imagine, just like the Cyber Essentials accreditation for cybercrime, you could almost imagine a kind of a Spike Essentials accreditation that you have to gain and you display. Yeah, and that's what we're hoping for. We've got our first nightclub in Exeter called The Vaults, and The Vaults have been working with me for years. Before this became a media sensation and everybody were like, oh my God, everyone's suddenly talking about spiking issues last year. The year before that, a local nightclub, a lady called Coral came to me and said, look, we're getting lots of reports of people getting spiked in our club. So she was stocking stop tops way before this. She was the first pub in the UK, nightclub in the UK that has now got the drink spike aware accreditation in her nightclub. So when you go in, her staff are trained, her security are trained, and they will all, they have a safe space. They know exactly what to do in the event if this happens to somebody. Yeah, phenomenal. So that's the plan. Get it made law, and then be ready in place with the training to go around and really get the spike aware accreditation out and about. Yeah, and in as many places as possible. Definitely. Very good. So one or two questions, maybe just to wrap up, if that's all right. So are there any books or podcasts that you listen to that you'd recommend that have made a difference to you?
Books. I did read a book recently, which was about happiness. And what is the author called? It's about looking after your own happiness.
Okay.
Happiness.
Free Happiness. And I can't quite see the author.
Dr. Vicky Barnes.
Dr. Vicky Barnes. Okay. Free Happiness. Excellent.
Yeah. You get one life, let it be happy. And that was when I was about 6 years old, and I said to my mum, like, what should I do in my life? And my gorgeous little mummy, who's now 82 and drives a little white Mercedes convertible, brilliant. I just absolutely adore my lovely little mum. She said to me, my darling, there's only one word of advice I've got for you, is be happy. That's it.
Fair enough.
And what else can you do about that? And my late dad, my darling late dad, he was always messing around and joking and always the life and soul of the party. So he always tried to put that into me as well. So I think, happiness is vital in your life. So that would be my number one. And regarding podcasts, I think that would have to be that we've just started doing a podcast show ourselves.
Oh, excellent.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Okay.
So it would be like, we're trying to raise awareness of what we're trying to do ourselves. So it's being involved in podcasts, I think, is.
And are you looking for guests on that, or how does that podcast work?
Yeah, we've got some great guests that we've got coming on the show, and we've already recorded quite a few. So we're just trying to get that ready now. We've got International Stamp Out Spiking Day on the 15th of July.
Okay.
So everything's going to be heading towards that date.
Brilliant. So 15th of July is National Spiking Day. So if people would like...
International Stamp Out Spiking Day.
Yes, sorry. Yes, indeed. A bit of a International Stamp Out Spiking Day. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if people would like to find out more about what you do, or maybe contact you or whatever, what's the best way for them to go about doing that, Dawn?
Contact us at info@stampOutSpiking.org.
Okay.
Follow us on social media. We're on every social media platform. So on there, you'll get lots of advice. To follow us, to share our materials so that other people can be warned how this is happening as well. And of course, we're a not-for-profit organisation. So if anybody likes what we do, if they'd be interested in donating or funding some of our work, would be fantastic.
Yep. So maybe one of the drinks manufacturers give you a bell. Yep.
That would be nice. Thank you. If you could arrange that, Kevin, that would be very much appreciated.
Brilliant. Dawn, thank you very much indeed for joining me on ScaleUp Radio today. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.